So I want to discuss a few points about the fountain limit and how that affects these Runick combo decks in general. And first off, I don't think that that Runick decks are gonna be like high tier or like among the tier 1 or even tier 2 in the Master Duel meta right now. But I would be saying that regardless of like how many copies Fountain is at, 1, 2, or 3. The main thing about Fountain is it's polarizing, right? The thing that hurts the most about a Fountain limitation is that you will never be able to get it back if they banish it, right? Now, this is huge if we were playing the TCG or if you were playing a best of 3 format, which, you know, like the online tournaments like MCSs. I would not recommend playing Runick for those, because when people see that you're playing Runick and they put in directed hates towards you, or they put in any random card that banishes Fountain like a damn Cosmic Cyclone, then that's extremely difficult for for you to, you know, to navigate, because one rogue Cyclone just ends your deck, and that's really painful. But we're in a best of 1, so ask yourself, when was the last time you saw your opponent actually Cosmic Cyclone you? Like, it's been like over a month since I've had my opponent activate a Cosmic Cyclone versus me. And that's the main point I'm getting at, is that the Fountain limitation is currently, it's not the biggest deal. It's not the biggest problem with Runick, with Runick decks in general. Now, it does put a sort of ceiling on how good the deck can be, because if Runick decks ever like just sniff high tier again, and people actually care about this deck as a matchup, and people start putting in direct hate towards Runick in their main decks, such as Cosmic Cyclone, then, you know, Runick will, it'll be tough. Like, Runick will never, I don't think, ever be tier 1 again in Master Duel, just for the simple fact that with one Fountain it's so easy to hate out. But when people don't care as much about Runick decks, such as, you know, I would assume that with the Fountain limitation, that not a lot of people are going to be playing Runick combo decks in general, and then they're all just going to be facing the Floodgate version. And people, like, you're not, you know, that's a whole different thing together. That's a whole different swath of cards you want to play for a Floodgate version that plays, you know, the 20 continuous Floodgate traps, as opposed to just the Fountain. Because the Fountain limit does not hurt the deck's consistency one bit. I literally replaced the Fountain, the one Fountain, with just another Runick card. And that gives me the exact same number of copies of Fountain as I had before, which is 16 Runick spells plus the one Fountain. It's not going to affect consistency at all. When you go first, it's only when you high roll, and like when you high roll and you can trigger Fountain multiple times a turn and draw 6 cards off it, that's when with the one Fountain, you know, doesn't let you do that. But at the same time, if you have a cracked hand like that and you're going through all your synchro plays and you're putting up like Baron, Nat Beast, and then like a Fountain up still plus drawing 2 cards, like, you don't, that's kind of, you don't need the extra Fountain activation. You've already established your entire board. Like, you've already probably won that game already. All you have to be mindful of is the only card that's really gonna randomly banish your Fountain in this meta is gonna be like a random Fender, and you should be able to protect your Fountain from that, you know, if you went first, at least. And like going second, if they just have a Fender out, like, it's easy to deal with a Fender. It's very manageable to deal with a Fender if you know it's there and it's telegraphed, right? As opposed to a Cosmic Cyclone where you know, they set one back row, and then that could possibly end your entire deck. You know, would be a lot harder. So thankfully, I don't think people are going to be on too many Cosmics this meta. Now, what's hard about this meta is it's way too damn diverse, and Runick is a deck that, as you know, does not have much room for non-engine. You notice there's no part of the Maxi minigame here besides the Maxi itself. There's no Ash, there's no Callby. There ain't no room for that. Okay? This thrust is already like barely enough to deal with Noir, because if you notice, this deck has no way to deal with Nor at all, besides Thrust and the Herald of the Abyss. So if you're playing 3 slots to search Herald, okay, then what do you do against, say, a Dragon deck or a combo deck, right? Because the Thrust is not enough. So then you play, hopefully you could Thrust into like maybe an evenly match, or Thrust, or like combinations of Runick spells to bait out negates. And then hopefully they negate it, because if they don't negate it, if they just let the Runick spell go, then you can't evenly match even, and that sucks. But then also, if you're playing against Mathmech, it's like there's board breakers suck against Mathmech because they don't beat Super Factorial. So then what are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna play cards that are good against Mathmech, such as Bestials or Crow and Bell, and then you face like Vanquish Souls, and then you have a bunch of dead non-engine cards in your deck? Like with only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 slots, but realistically it's just 6 because 3 of them are dedicated to Maxi. It's quite difficult to find the balance between these 9 cards to deal with such a wide ranging meta where each deck is weak to different pieces of non-engine. And that, in my opinion, is the biggest reason why Runick Combo Decks will struggle this meta. Even more so than the Fountain limitation, since, as I mentioned, in the best of 1, as long as people aren't putting direct hate for Runick and aren't respecting Runick as a combo deck, you know, it's fine. You probably won't deal with the downsides of only 1 Fountain most of the time. But the format being so diverse, in that let's count all the viable like top tier decks right now, like Dragon Link, Purrely, Mathmech, Labrynth, Vanquish Souls, Kashtira, New Pack, Vanadium, Branded, Zodiac. It's gonna make a comeback. There's gonna be triple barrage everywhere. Like, what kind of non-engine suite can you run to deal with those like 9 different possibly high tier decks? At least like 6 to 8 top tier decks, and like a rogue deck, you know, like Zodiac, that's gonna see popular because of like nostalgia reasons. But I mean, it's just not enough. Like, the engine takes up so much space in the combo decks. Like, you need at least 16, I would say, more than 15 Runick spells at least, especially with Runick Fountain going to 1. Like, you want the deck to be consistent. You want to draw Runick cards. That's the whole point of the deck. But because their engine takes up so much space, that means you're really relying on your non-engine being impactful and being, you know, having a wide enough scope to where it can cover multiple matchups. And it's just, there's so many matchups where like some cards are just useless against them, and you're just, no matter what non-engine you run, there's gonna be one matchup where you're gonna be missing a card, and then there's gonna be one matchup where the non-engine you put in is just gonna be completely dead. Like, I don't know, I don't want to draw evenly against Mathmech. What, like, that doesn't kill the Super Factorial, that doesn't, I have to bait out to Terahertz and waste a card in Terahertz first anyways. Like, that's not great. I want to draw Herald against Labrynth, like, oh, whoop de frickin' do that. I could get rid of the Lady Labrynth. Oh no, it's just the best. And then against the combo decks like Dragon Link, and then Vanadium's coming soon. Like, you don't run enough hand traps to be able to stop them. And then if they full combo, like, there's, you know, there's a very few combinations of cards in your deck that can break an entire board and then still win on the next, still put yourself in a win position, because, you know, they do follow up on their combo too, and then they're not gonna die for 2 turns because you're a Runick deck. So even if you don't die immediately, they're gonna maintain their advantage again, and you just waste a bunch of cards trying to play through their board and probably failing. But yeah, if anyone has ideas on what combinations of non-engines and board breakers and like blowouts we should be running to handle this meta, you know, let me know. I'm personally out of ideas myself. But anyway, let's over like what's left of the deck. I mean, the materia monsters are obvious. You know, we're running the 16 Runick spells. That's self-explanatory. The Foolish Burial Goods just as another starter to the Interior engine, because people know that the way you lose with these Runick combo decks is when you don't draw into your not Runick part of the deck, and it's just Runick cards. You're playing Runick Control, except you're not playing Floodgates like the Runick Stun deck, so it's kind of not, the one fountain is not as oppressive with just your Runick cards as disruption, so you really want to see as many copies of your actual engine as possible. And yeah, this is the non-engine we're going for. You're not going for the Maxi package, the anti-Maxi package, like Ash and stuff, since this deck plays okay into Maxi, better than most. Obviously, if you go second and they drop Maxi on you, it's still rough, but like, I mean, if they full combo you, you're probably not beating them even if you negate their Maxi, because then you would lose their board that they established, since your only non-engine in that case was to beat Maxi, and you beat Maxi, but then you don't beat their board, so their actual engine. And 2 thrusts, talons, herald, and evenly match. Evenly is just to cover everything that's you wouldn't herald against, since again you need an Alta Noir. Unfortunately, because Purrely is still going to be the meta, 66% of the time they're still going to end on a hard made Noir because of Delicious Memory is just at 2 and not at 1. So yeah, and then Talents is just a random card that you can also search off Rust if you don't need the access to the board breaker, so it does come up sometimes, but not all the time. Yeah, these 5-6 slots. Yeah, the room mechanic. The room mechanic is for when you get the hand trap going first. So you want something to add off Thrust. You know, and the room is probably the most generic or the most consistent one in value. Like D-Bearer isn't good against every deck, and a Pointer's banned, so yeah, but these 6 are going to change most likely. I would not recommend playing, or I would recommend like maybe looking into other things to cover these 6 slots, since I don't, as I mentioned, I don't think the coverage between these 6 cards is good enough into this meta, and that's the hardest part of trying to deck build for this deck, really. And extra deck is all the same. You got the 2/2 Runicks, the Beast, Barkion, 2 level 6 Synchros, 1 being a tuner, Baron, Changing, Dugars. Dugars is more important now without multiple fountain, because now if you draw into any more Naturia Sacred Trees, if you already have fountain, you cannot use Hugin to discard your extra copies of Naturia Sacred Tree, because, you know, legally there's no other target for Hugin, and then you can't trigger discard. So Dugars is another way to trigger to allow you to discard extra Sacred Trees from hand, if you already have fountain. And yeah, Exciton Knight, it's nice. Trishla, I'm running Trishla because I pulled this from a free pack. Again, there's a Cyber Size Harpy Lady Joshua Schmidt mentioned that you could also run. Unfortunately, these are both URs, so like there's no budget alternative for the 15th slot, so you could really just run any rank 4 exceed, since this is the slot that comes up the least out of all the slots. Donner comes up a lot. You want to clear the extra monster zone from your more runic spells. And yeah, let's see some let's play one fountain gameplay and see if there's any difference with how the deck functions with just 1 fountain versus 2. So there actually is some hope for this deck in regards to the Purrely matchup post ban list, and both me and my opponent are in Master 1, so we're basically just testing out next ban list decks. So they're on 2 Purrely and 2 Delicious Memory, and yeah, they're gonna lead with Sleepy, and I'm gonna chain Maxi, and they're gonna hard draw Delicious Memory. So yeah, that wasn't part of the plan, but the idea is if your opponent can't make Noir on their turn, the matchup gets significantly more manageable. So they're gonna Purrely and they're gonna add Eep directly. So this is what I mean. They're gonna do Delicious, since they don't have any more resources in hand, since the Maxi prompted out like a quick play spell early. They couldn't attach it to Plum, so right now they're not gonna be able to get enough materials underneath their Plum to be able to hard make a Noir on their turn. They will be able to make a Yeep on our turn, but if they flip Yeep and make Noir on our turn, it is significantly more manageable. So as you can see, our hand is 5 Runick cards. So I'm gonna just fire off Tip, do everything in the draw phase, before they get the standby phase. That way they don't get a chance to draw off their 2 sleeping memories attached to Plump. And here's why it's so much easier when they don't make hard make Noir on their turn. So I'm gonna Freezing Curses to prompt out the Eep, right? Since you Freezing Curses in the draw phase, that way they can't like chain Eep or anything. You know, it just makes them get flip the Eep. And as soon as they flip the Eep, you can Runick Flashing Fire target their Plump, which you have about 4 copies of Flashing Fire still. So that's like 4 additional outs, plus a 6 card you can draw to out Noir if they fire on the trap instead of hard making it. And because of that, it's gonna make the Eep resolve without effect, and we have the Destruction too, so you want a Destruction away to My Friend Purrely so they can't add back follow-up either. So just by drawing a handful of Runick cards, you're able to beat Eep pass. So there goes the Plump. No Noir for them, no add off My Friend. And they're gonna get the street to get the Purrely Surge, but at that point it's like whatever. We still have a Runick spell, which I'm gonna use to summon Hugin, and then ditch that damn Smile to get the 1 copy of Runick Fountain, activate Runick Fountain, and activate Slumber. This is gonna draw 3 cards, and they just... Yeah, I mean, they were probably not winning that game, because you draw any Naturia monster, and you just... It's full combo from there. They're probably losing their whole board, one way or another, but... Again, they were gonna die for like 2 or 3 more turns, so if they wanted to stay in, they might have had a chance. But yeah, that's the pre-ban list. That hand would have got cooked by Purrely and Ghost Trick Purrely. They make a Noir, and you suddenly can't do anything to it, and then they can just chain it whenever you try to resolve Fountain, and it's like GG's. So this is gonna be a hand that just shows how oppressive Runick decks are going first still, even with 1 Fountain. So I'm gonna Golden Droplets now. I run Triple Tactics. Just a note about when to activate Runick spell. Since I run Triple Tactics Talons in this build of Runick, I want to activate all my Runick stuff and quickly spells in the main phase. It does play into draw, yes, but also if they max see me here and I draw into a Talons later, then Talons will be live. Whereas if you in other builds where I didn't run Triple Tactics Talons, I would activate my Runick spells in the draw phase to play around Droll and Veiler to an extent. That way you just search Fountain. Since Fountain's limited now, you actually have to search for it and, you know, just make yourself less vulnerable to hand traps that way if you're not playing Triple Tactics. So yeah, Hugin discard evenly, add Runick Fountain. Then I'm gonna Foolish Burial Goods, dump the Naturia Sega Tree to add Mole Cricket. I'm gonna add Mole Cricket, and I'm gonna sack it for Camellia, and Camellia's gonna dump Sacred Tree, and Sacred Tree is gonna add Naturia Blessing, activate Fountain, and I'm gonna Synchro into Coral Dragon, and Slumber again for Gary, and then that's gonna let me draw 2 as I thought, but they ashed it. So this was an interesting ash. You notice they let me search Fountain, and they let me... I guess ashing the Foolish Burial on a Sacred Tree is a bit harder of a call, because I could just have more Naturia monsters in hand instead of just a Foolish Burial, and like ashing that would have done nothing, but not ashing the Fountain on the Hugin was an interesting choice. Instead they opt for ashing the draw. And I don't have Runick cards in hand because of that, but at the same time, like look what this gets me. Tactics gets me the Ruma, and then you get to make a Baron, so that I get to draw a card off the Coral Dragon, which I draw into Max C. I mean, yeah, pretty good. One hand trap. To be honest, there was not any good place to ash at that point. I would still end on at least Baron, and if not Fountain, you know, I would still have the Ruma Cannon set. Which, by the way, Baron, the Berserker Cannon, if you do it, resets Baron if it survives for next turn, so you get 2 negates out of Baron that way. If it ever gets that far. So in the draw phase, I'm going to Naturia Blessing back to Camellia, which is going to trigger it to dump a third Sacred Tree. It's going to add another Blessing for follow-up, and that way it's on the field. So when our opponent summons a card, you can just summon back back Mole Cricket with Camellia. They're playing Live Twin Spright, so unfortunately Live Twin Spright is not going to be able to beat Camellia, Baron, and Daruma Cannon. It's just not possible. So we get the Camellia summon and we get the Maxi too. And they can't even negate it. They get out the other twin, you draw a card, and then Mole Cricket, I'm just going to sack it for Sunflower, because my opponent's never gonna control a monster with more attack than Baron, so you might as well just get the Mole Cricket now. And they starter for Carrot for, I don't know, I don't know where they were going with this, to be honest, because I have a Sunflower on the field. So they're gonna Flutter Duster, which I'm gonna chain a Runick spell, which is what they wanted to negate with Carrot, but you know, you could just negate the Carrot with Sunflower and not even sack anything, and that's... yeah, that's gonna be a game. Granted, their hand without a board breaker is not beating Naturia anyways. So in the end, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, this is gonna prompt the draw 3 off Fountain, and they already expended starter and a normal summon, and I didn't even use Baron or Daruma Cannon yet, or really any real Runick spells. And here's the other Runick combo deck I've been playing, or testing with one Fountain, which is just flat out Runick Spright. And this could be any other Runick combo deck. This could be Runick Fur Hire Spright, this could be Runick Plunder, you know, if you're into that. There's any combo deck that goes with the Runick, basically. But this just happens to be the one that I've been playing, because this is the one I have. And much like the Runick Naturia, the way the deck plays and like the playstyle hasn't really changed too much with this one Fountain, outside of the high roll hands where you already were gonna win the game anyways. And yeah, I've been avoiding Cosmic Cyclones, so I haven't felt too much of a issue with the one Fountain. What this deck does struggle with more than a Runick though is this deck actually does get affected by Maxi quite a bit more. So for that reason, I am running the triple Ash Blossom as a generic card. It's kind of low impact in certain matchups, which is why I don't like dedicating one of my 6 non-instant slots that isn't Maxi to Ash Blossom. But you know, this deck does enjoy not having to play through Maxi, so unfortunately this is going here. And yeah, it's good against Lab. It's not so good against Mathmech because Circular is still a 3, and opening Circular makes Ash Blossom completely irrelevant. And against combo decks, it usually won't stop their entire play. It might not even stop any of it because you don't know the contents of their hand. And if you Ash the wrong thing on Dragon Link, which is like almost impossible to Ash the correct thing on versus Dragon Link, because they have 5 cards in their hand, and each one of them could be Ash bait, so you don't really know what you're supposed to hit. At the same time, there is also another advantage with Runick Spright, I suppose, which is because they're not relying on the normal summon. You get to take advantage of stuff like Lava Golem, and I wouldn't play Sphere Mode because Sphere Mode is just ainting too hard in certain matchups, especially Purrely. Like Purrely does not play into Sphere Mode, so like forget about that. But Lava Golem is just nice. It's like a nice in between. We're not running the Thrust package because there's just not enough room to run a sufficient enough Thrust package while also running Ash Blossom. You know, Lava Golem that's also outs Noir, so it's kind of annoying because if you don't have Destruction, then they're just gonna add back all their stuff off of the My Friend, so you're gonna get into a dumbass grind game with them. And they already drew from Sleeping Memory, so it's like the game just resets if you Lava Golem them at best. But you know, it's better than nothing. And I like this. You could run Kurikara too, like say in the Runick Naturia build that doesn't eat up your normal summon, but the problem is against combo decks, Kurikara is a lot less effective than Lava Golem. Like Lava Golem just says get rid of the 2 biggest threats on your opponent's board, whereas Kurikara says eat 2 disruptions before you can activate this card most of the time. So it's like doesn't feel ideal, and you don't it's really hard to bait out the interruptions without using your battle phase, so it's not like even the Kurikara, it comes in at like, what, 4,500, but you can't even use your battle phase to take advantage of its high attack stat. It's like it's really awkward against a lot of matchups in that way, where it was good against Kashtira and Purrely specifically, but with Kash seeing less play and with other decks being in the meta, Kurikara has lost a lot of value. And also, Lava Golem has synergy with Lineup Kin. Lineup Kin is quite insane. You can bounce back your Lava Golems and just have an infinite removal glitch. Infinite removal. And Lineup Kin is also not once returned. This is actually, I don't mind drawing this at all. Especially going second. You normal summon this and this just eats up a disruption. Straight up. And then you can revive it back later with Spright Elf because it's not a once return, and if you draw into, if you manage to draw into Lava Golem like even after turn 1, because you know Runick decks have trouble dealing with opponent's monsters because there's no battle phase, right? But as long as you have a Lava Golem and Lineup Kin in circulation, your opponent will never be able to establish a board against you unless they just stick on one monster. But if they're just like trying to hold down one monster against like the advantage of Runick Fountain plus like your Spright Elves, like they're not winning that exchange. But yeah, at the same time, Lava Golem sucks against Mathmech. It's gonna suck against Branded if that gets popular after the pack. So again, the issue we're going back to is not enough non-engine slots to deal with a diverse meta that we have right here. And you know, the extra decks, it's a Cap Shell I really am iffy on. Like, I don't quite like this card, and Djinn Buster, especially Djinn Buster. Like, Djinn Buster is probably the weakest thing you can make in the extra deck. And anytime you make Djinn Buster, it's hella win more, because that means you already have access to Hyperia as a normal summon, and you drew your like Spright cards, like your good Spright cards, like Starter or Blue or Jet. So, I mean, at that point, do you really need the Djinn Buster and the extra draw? Like, you're probably gonna win that game anyways. And I feel like in the times where you would summon Cap Shell off Gigantic, honestly, I would argue it feels better most of the time to Gigantic out a Max C if you don't already have it instead of Cap Shell, and then add the Max C to your hand with Herald of Purrely. So that might be a consideration of just cutting the Cap Shell and cutting the Djinn Buster and putting the Herald of Purrely so that you search Max C in your combo if you already have everything, and then that opens up another non-engine slot. So, you know, stuff to think about. And the rest of the extra deck is, aside from the Djinn Buster, oops, that's the wrong Djinn. The Runicks, the Gary, the double Gigantic might not need 2 Gigantics, honestly. Most of the time only really resolve this once, but you know, it is nice to potentially get a utility like Lineup Kin. If you don't open a Spright card in the first place, then you can use the second one to get the Lineup Kin and against Kashtira, I guess. Double Spright Elf. The Pit Knight early is really nice. This is what I actually prefer to go into most of the time, since again, need to protect the 1 fountain, and the only real thing that people play in their main decks now on that actually banish fountain for you is probably Fender. Like, that is the most common thing people will play that has a threat to actually remove fountain like from your deck completely. And making Pit Knight early just basically neutralizes Fender the best way possible. It does it better than Red and better than Djinn Buster does, because they can only negate one of Fender's effects. Whereas if they summon Fender and you can just Pit Knight, you can just activate Elf and then chain Pit Knight early, and then the Fender, everything about the Fender's like threat level is neutralized. They can't banish your fountain anymore, they can't even search for it, and its attack becomes 0, which makes it not able to attack over any of your small Spright monsters. And that was like the other thing that made Fender annoying, was that even if you negated its banish effect, like you could still enter battle phase, attack, and just wreck your board that way. for a little bit and then play in main phase 2. But yeah, and Pinite Early, it's also just like a standard negate, and you can reuse this since you can just bring it back with Elf whenever your opponent controls a monster, which is going to be most of the time because, again, playing Runick, you don't have a battle phase a lot of the time, so... And 3 IP targets, this might seem a bit much. Unicorn and Aethermax, I think you should be running in the deck like this, although Aethermax doesn't really come out too often anymore. The matchups where it's good against aren't as common, but it's still nice to have. And Griffin randomly resets your one-off fountain. You know, if you can't free up the extra monster zone to get back to summon your Gary, then Griffin is a way to reset fountain in grind games, and also it insta wins the Purrely matchup. And you do use IP a lot, because IP is the same as Pinite Early. Whenever your opponent controls a monster, you can bring back the IP and the early, so within the entire turn cycle, you can like bring back early, then your opponent's turn, use Elf, negate something with early while bringing back IP Masquerade, and then make another target. So I have made like all 3 targets in a game before, because my opponent would just not surrender. Oh, right, again, don't worry about the Hyperia's conflicting with the Lava Golem. If you have Hyperia and Lava Golem and you gotta use Lava Golem, just pitch Hyperia for Hugin. And then you can revive it back later with Elf and get the draw that way. It's basically the same, because, again, this card is hard ones per turn anyway, so it doesn't matter if you get this draw from normal something or reviving off Elf. Just in case you were worried about that confliction. Anyway, let's move on to the replays. Well, again, this is just another game showing the strength of Runick and Runick variants going first. And our opponent's gonna, like, especially through hand traps, okay? So, you're gonna get Hugin, pitch Smiting Storm, and add Fountain. And I'm gonna special blue, I'm just gonna get Jets, and then that's gonna get drolled. See? Boom. Draw phase Runick spell plays around droll. And I do it in this build because this build does not run triple attack as talent, so there's no benefit of activating stuff in the main phase. And now this is the earliest they draw me, and you can tell, like, this is already not gonna do much at this point. They lost a card in their hand, and we get to go Gigantic. I'm gonna go Gigantic, special summon Red out. That's what I'm gonna Jet starter summon Red out anyways, so I just skip that step and just get Red out immediately. Go into Elf. Elf bring back Carrot, except it gets Belled, so that's 2 hand traps gone. And yeah, I'm perfectly willing to pass. This guy wasted 2 cards in their hand, and now they're dealing with a Fountain that I still searched in the draw phase, and an Elf that's going to bring back a Carrot for a negate, and we have Freezing Curses and Flashing Fire still. And one's going to Small World their Mathmech cards to get a Circular, and Circular gets cooked by Runick cards going second, because you can just hit it on the special summon. So they're going to Circular it, okay. And I'm going to Elf bring back blue for a search, and they're going to call by it, so now I'm just going to Flashing Fire there's Mathmech Circular, and they're down to 1 card in hand and 1 Sigma. And we get to draw 3 cards off the Fountain. So yeah, they're down. You know, that Mathmech opening Droll, Bell, Called by the Grave, Circular. Against most decks, a lot of decks, that would be lethal, but you know, when you draw 4 Runick cards, that actually just counters that completely. Alright, so this is a game where we're going second versus Labrynth. Labrynth can be a weird matchup. You just don't know really what happens, since like these decks interact with each other in like weird ways. Runick interacts with decks in like ways that normal decks don't usually. So we have Ash in hand, right? So draw phase, I'm just gonna do my Runick stuff. And we're gonna Ash the Welcome Labrynth, which You might think like we're in a commanding position at this point, right? Like they got 3 cards and we got 3 Runicks plus a Lava Golem, which admittedly Lava Golem does not really do much in this matchup too, so that's kind of meh. I'm gonna discard Smiting Storm though, and that's gonna get Imperm. So now this is a bit awkward because now I didn't draw a Spright monster. If I drew any monster, if I drew a damn Maxi, like we would have been golden. But now, like I can Runick Tip, search Fountain for Flash Freezing Curses, but I can't use this Freezing Curses under any circumstance because we already have something in the EMZ, and their opponent has no monster face up. The fact that they set a damn monster, it's like, it makes my Freezing Curses dead, it makes me unable to draw with Fountain, and that just prolongs the game. And in a prolonged game with Lab, you don't want to really do that, so they're gonna, for some reason, big welcome back their Furniture. That's gonna trigger their Chandragulator, but they already have a Chandragulator in hand. I don't know why they would need a second one, to be honest, but you know, I get it. Just pitch one and then pitch the other to get. They're gonna add the field spell actually, which this is what I don't quite get, because I have a Fountain on the field. They should know that I'm bricking on Runick spells that I can't activate or something, because you know, I didn't draw a Fountain. I didn't have anything I could use, so they should really not be trying to go after Fountain right now, because if they do, I can just protect it with Hugin. And when I'm protected with Hugin, that opens up my main monster zone to where I can activate more Runick spells. And they just hard drew the second Welcome Labyrinth anyways, so I'm gonna Freezing Curses their Lady Lab so that they can't get any monster, you know, any trap from their deck. And I'm gonna summon Lovely Lady. And here comes the Hugin. I only summon Hugin to protect my Fountain again, so that once again Lovely can't pop my Fountain and I get the draw. And here they're gonna they're gonna do something weird. They're gonna rip Lava Golem from my hand. Which, normally Lava Golem does absolutely nothing in this matchup, but now, this is the one of the times where I would have loved to have this Lava Golem against Labrynth. Because they put the Stovey on the field, and they don't activate it immediately. So we get the Fountain draw, and look at these draws. Okay, so Hyperia, Runick Slumber. Unfortunately, we already used Runick Slumber this turn, so we drew a Runick spell that we cannot activate again. That's unfortunate. So I'm gonna Hyperia it for Wind Up Kitten, which is another card that I don't really want to draw at this instance. We're gonna go Gigantic, and then Gigantic summons Blue, which is gonna get Jet, then Special Jet, which is gonna get Smashers, and Smashers is gonna rip the board, and they see that. Yeah, honestly, the game should have ended on turn 2, but because we didn't draw any real monsters, it got extended to a point where if I didn't draw double Runick spells, we might have been in trouble. But it's all right. The point is, against Labrynth, EEV, yes, is devastating, but they're never gonna get to EEV versus Runick Spright, because you just have infinite cards that you can chain to their trap cards, so that their Lady Lab can never actually set a trap card from their deck. Alright, so this is an interesting game. So this time we hard draw Runick Fountain. Runick Fountain is very nice to draw still, because it lets you play around Maxi as here. You're gonna normal summon. You're gonna activate Runick Fountain and then activate a Runick spell, and they chain Maxi, right? So this is where you chain your second Runick spell, and now they get 0 value out of their Maxi whatsoever, and now you get to draw 2 off of Runick Fountain anyways. So you just blank their Maxi and still get the 2 card draws, and I draw Spright, Starter, and Slumber. So draw phase, I'm gonna Starter. I already have Blue in hand, so I don't need the Starter for follow-up, so I'm gonna get Carrot out, and then I'm gonna use Maxi after the Carrot's out to negate any Call Device on my Maxi. I know they probably don't have Ash. So if they have Ash, they would have Ash Runick Fountain. So unless they... And they would have also maybe considered Ashing Starter, which I got no delay from. So it's definitely just Mac Call by they're going to have to play around. And they're going to summon Kashtira Fenrir, and they're going to Droll. This is an interesting Droll, because it turns off their own Fenrir, and it turns off my Maxi draws, but... You're going to see this ends up hurting both players, not just me. So they're going to Kashtira Theosis now. hard draw the Theosis, but we hard draw the Flashing Fire. That's gonna completely blank their setup. And they have the Unicorn in hand too, but Unicorn can't search anything. They're gonna enter battle phase, and I'm just gonna Runick Slumber. I know I don't get a draw, and you could potentially argue to save Runick Slumber for my turn after draw wears off so that I could get the draw. But also, if that last card in hand is, say, a Birth, you know, I don't really want them to be using Birth, so I keep the Carrot on field just for safety reasons. Because I can't activate a Runick Slumber to draw if that last card is Birth anyways, because then, you know, it's always going to banish all my Runick cards. So just to be safe and keeping my Carrot alive, I already have the blue for follow-up on the next turn. So it's fine. And yeah, that's, man, what is the obsession with Cash players running Skill Drain in their deck? Like, dude. Yeah, anyways, they, probably was not a Birth in their hand anyways, so they just conceded after that. Yeah, that's... Yeah, how to play around Maxi and roll. Sort of. So, in conclusion, if Runick Combo is a bad deck with just one fountain, then it was probably going to be a bad deck with two fountains anyways. Like I said, people aren't really trying to hate out Runick right now, so you don't have to worry about the biggest downside of one fountain, which is having it banished permanently, since people don't seem to really care as much right now, especially in the best of one meta. And the real problem is the lack of damn non-engine slots to deal with a meta that's getting increasingly wide and more degenerate going first, to where you are really going to struggle going second when you don't draw the correct non-engine, unfortunately. And for that reason, Runick Combo is not one of the serious types of decks that I'm going to consider for a Duelist Cup. Not unless I find a magical combination of these 6 cards that hit enough the meta to where I'm satisfied and to where my win rate going second isn't like close to 0 or like under 30%. But we'll see, and I'll let you know if I find that ratio.